and all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast. Damn you, Hollywood! And here's your host. His name is Robert Winfree, and Robert Winfree has done this. And now, Robert Winfree. Yay!
That gag just did not know when to stop. It was probably your favorite gag, because boy howdy was that the dead horse they were flogging.
Between the outfit she was wearing, her tiny waist, and that gag, she was my favorite character in the entire movie.
That does not surprise me one little bit. Right.
I like Goyles. Have I mentioned that to you? I like Goyles.
Well, you know, you're also a fan of the slightly gothic and then exotic aesthetic. Be
This
that,
is also true.
Asian or Latina.
I do.
I'm sure this just instills your very white wife with confidence in your relationship.
I can't tell you how many times that has come up. It's like, wait, you think the Mexican's really hot? Wait, you think the Asian's really hot? Like, you know you're married to the whitest woman ever. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Y'all serve your purposes.
Your marriage on a just rock solid foundation there.
Granite, my friend. Fucking granite.
All right. Tonight, if you couldn't tell from the title of the episode, we are talking about Boss Level. This was released technically today. We're recording this at 5. We're recording this on Friday morning, and it came out at some point last night in the evening. This was brought to you by, let's see, directed by Joe Carnahan, a moderately well-known, not, famous, but moderately well-known action director, I seem to recall. Yeah, he's done some good stuff. Let me see. Produced by, in terms of companies, Highland Film Group, Emmett Furlow Oasis, Diamond Movie Productions, MoviePass, The Fizz Facility, Ingenious Media, and War Party, distributed exclusively on Hulu.com. Our primary, this stars Frank Grillo. He's the guy we're going to spend the vast majority of our time with. Mark, I think you kind of pitched this one to me when you were made aware of its existence by Jesse. Jesse went, hey, look at this. And you went, oh, this might be fun. And we both kind of went, yeah, all right, let's talk about it.
Well, no, what happens is I, in order to maintain some semblance of order on all these various podcasts that I do and to keep, I try not to get blindsided with requests to do things. Sometimes that can't be helped. One of you is going to pop up and go, thing, and I'm going to go, what now? So, to be talking about things that are in the news, to be talking about things that are hip and current, I will scour Wikipedia pages for lists of original content that's upcoming.
I really hate to burst your bubble about your self perception. You just said hip.
I also use the phrase "hip to the jive." So my modernity is skeptical at best. In any case,
yep.
the point being, I will keep abreast by going through various Wikipedia pages, reading the trades, Variety, Deadline, keeping up with Twitter feeds like discussing film, so that I can be on top of changes happening in the world of film and television, see what's coming out, et cetera, et cetera. Because you don't always know until it comes out or the trades are talking about it. I happen to have noticed on a week where there wasn't a tremendous amount initially to being that was available to be discussed. I mean, I think Ray and the Last Dragon was announced, but outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot else until recently stuff got added. And Chaos Walking may or may not have actually come out today. It did eventually, but they were looking to sell that to Netflix at some point. Point being, I saw this movie. I saw it called Boss Level, and I'm like, Boss Level, video games. Let me see what this is. And then I threw it out there because I'm like, hey, this seems like something we would have fun talking about. And you bought in, and so here we are. And it was an easy one to do because it came out on Hulu. It was supposed to be in theaters August 16th, 2019, but COVID, and then Hulu bought it. So there you go.
Hang on, if it was supposed to come out in 2019, there's no reason for COVID to have impacted it. What changed?
Okay, hang on. You're right. I have my dates wrong. It was scheduled to release August 16th, 2019, but missed its release date. A special free advance screening of the film sponsored by entertainment website Collider. Ugh, we hate you, Collider. Was held at ArcLight Cinemas in Hollywood on February 11th, 2020, followed by a Q&A session with Grillo and Carnahan. In June 2020, Entertainment Studios dropped the film. Ah, that's what happened. In November 2020, the U.S. distribution rights were acquired in an 8-figure deal by Hulu, and then it was released today.
So they probably at least... I imagine that whatever deal they made for 8 figures on a reported budget of $45 million, this is the only thing we're going to talk about with the money, because we did one of these on Tuesday, and there hasn't been an actual theatrical weekend yet. So I imagine they made money on this. At a bare minimum, everyone got paid, and then as an entire enterprise, it was a net neutral.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time imagining that they would have lost a significant chunk of money on this.
Who knows? But I mean, I don't want to get. I feel like we talk about this with every show now, but with the long tail of need for niche content across an infinite amount of streaming sources, and more every day are being added. This is the pattern now. Outside of the $200 million movie, and even then, you never know. You're going to see a lot more of these, these Willy's Wonderland and, Boss Level and Moxie and so many more of these movies that may have.
Don't bring up Moxie. You're better than that. Don't do it.
Yes Day, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, One Night in Miami. You're going to see a lot.
We also just talked about I Care a Lot, which,
Yeah, I Care a Lot. You're going to see a lot of these end up on streaming services because they know they're not going to get, these are not going to get people to come to the theaters. You're going to get people like my parents, and that's it, who go see everything. Even Cherry, which debuted in theaters today, is only having like a week of theater, a week's time in the theater, and then it's going right to Apple Plus, which is where I'm going to watch it. That's the new one with Tom Holland, where he plays a military vet who starts robbing banks.
All right, good for him, I guess.
Another one that debuted on Hulu not that long ago was United States versus Billie Holiday. That just won a Golden Globe. So, anyway, point being, it was a cheaply made film. It looks really good.
They really maximized for. I mean, I hate to say only $45 million, but in the realms of action movies. Mm-hmm. $45 million is not a tremendous amount of money. They absolutely maximized that here.
This seemed like part of the cast seems like they did this because it seemed fun to do. Like I think Frank Grillo was one of the producers, and this was much like Willy's Wonderland. I feel like he had the script and was like, "I really want to make this movie. Let's make this movie." And then I think like Mel Gibson looked at it and was like, "This looks fun. I'll do this for scale." Naomi Watts, she does everything, and then everybody else. And then everybody else, they did not spend money on this cast. Holy cow. It's got like Will Sasso, Rob Gronkowski, Rampage, and Rashad Evans as twins. No.
I genuinely hope they paid Ken Jeong in booze. Because that's all he's worth.
We have you for a day. We'll pay you, we'll give you a sandwich. A big sandwich if you really want one. And a 6-pack of beer. And he said, done.
Given the state of his acting career, that was probably overpaying for him.
So tell me about this movie.
All right. As for the plot of Boss Level, we are introduced to Roy. Roy Pulver. Boy, they didn't try with that. They did not try with that at all. Anyway, that's an unnecessary shot at the writing because names don't really matter. Anyway. We're introduced to Roy Pulver as he begins what we're led to believe is just another day in his repeat of days. He wakes up and is summarily assaulted for hours on end by a team of nefarious ne'er-do-well assassins trying to kill him. The catch being, every time he dies, he wakes up back in bed and has to start all over. So, again, the Groundhog Day bit is obvious here. He has figured out how to get through the majority of this unscathed, but he can never seem to survive longer than I think the number was like 1247. By that point in time, no matter what he does, he's always been caught, he's always been killed. And he's a little bit despondent with this. He found out that his ex-wife and the mother of his son is dead. His son does not actually know that he's his father. He knows who he is, but it's kind of a, oh, you're a friend of my mom's / friend of the family thing. And Roy, after becoming a little bit disillusioned, and his escapes are always spectacular. There's a big knife fight. He kills someone who trains a minigun on him from a helicopter. There's a car chase. There's, a lot of stuff. They're a colorful group of characters trying to kill him. There's Gronk. He's the helicopter gunner.
Oh, that's who that was? I couldn't figure out who the helicopter gunner was. That was Gronk, huh?
That's Gronk.
Okay.
You can tell because on his one line he actually just says Gronk. That's all he can do is say some. He's like a real life Pokemon. All he can do is say Gronk.
I believe he referred to Frank Grillo as Grover. I should have caught that.
So his ex-wife is played by Naomi Watts. We see the flashback to yesterday, which was for Roy about a month and a half ago. They have some fun with that. Again, we mentioned Mel Gibson. He plays our big bad, the colonel in charge of the devious science experiment that has wrought this time loop insanity. Roy decides that at one point he goes a different way than he normally does. What he's kind of given up on now that he's figured he can't live longer than past a specific point. He knows that if he goes to a specific bar by a specific point in time, he can get completely plastered by the point that they find him, and then he doesn't actually feel the horrible pain associated with being shot dozens and dozens of times. But he goes a different way. He actually stumbles across Joe, his son, who heads down to a kind of pop-up retro esports tournament. He spends some time bonding with him, but he discovers in the course of this that he survives longer than he expected because he was underground. They are tracking him somehow, and being underground interferes with what they're doing. He questions a security specialist that he has met at the bar, discovers that there is a tracker implanted in one of his teeth, which he yanks out. He uses this to stage bloody vengeance several times on everyone. Goes on a murder spree towards our final boss, but is stopped at the end by Guan Yin, who is deeply annoying.
She's the best character in the movie.
She is not, but I respect your random attraction to people that you have never met and will never meet. She beats him with a sword, and he can't get around this no matter how many bullets he shoots at her. So fortunately, someone else he met in this bar was a very famous Chinese, and I say Chinese sword because it is the Chinese sword, in addition to the fact that the actress played by Michelle Yeoh is actually, Michelle Yeoh is Chinese, as is the character. So he spends a fair amount of time, about 100 days or so, working with her. I think it was closer to 60. Anyway, he spends a lot of time training with her so that he can actually beat Guan Yin in a sword fight. Does so, kills the big bodyguard of Mel Gibson, kills Mel Gibson, but Mel Gibson reminds him that, well, if you came all the way here to kill all of us, I wonder what happened to your son. He finds out that his son is dead. He spends the next several iterations killing all of the assassins, but then just waiting with his son until the end of the world. You see, the device that they're using, if it stays active for too long, creates a chain reaction that annihilates and then reforms all matter in the universe, something like that. It doesn't matter. It's a narrative device. They never go into the science, which is good because then I'd have to critique the science. As it stands, it's just hey, this is a thing. So he spends several iterations doing that. In one of them, he discovers that that Naomi Watts was not killed yesterday, which is what he thought. She was actually killed at like 7:14 in the morning on this day. And since he wakes up at around 7, he potentially has enough time to save her. Next iteration, he does so. He stops her from being killed. She gives him a little bit of information about what's going on. Sends him back into... She puts him in the machine because the only clue we're given to about the science here is that there was some kind of missing mass from the reaction they were trying to make. So Naomi Watts used some blood and hair from Frank Grillo to make him the missing mass. This means that every time things reset, every time he dies, everything resets around him, or every time everything ends, he resets to a specific point because he is tied to the machine somehow. She puts him in the middle of the machine. This is the only way to shut down the machine. It will end the loop, but it will kill him one final time, so he has to go through the loop one last time and just not die this time. And then he will get his happily ever after, reconnecting with his wife and son. And presumably he is successful because the movie ends as he wakes up one final time and re-begins the sequence. Now, this is not a very plot-driven movie in that respect. What works about this movie is the action sequences, the comedy, and to be fair to the principal players, especially Frank Grillo, Frank Grillo's not going to win any awards, I think, in his lifetime. I could be wrong about that, but the man is not the meathead actor you think he is. He's got a surprising amount of depth. I mean, you and I also reviewed his one of his starring vehicles, the television series Kingdom. So you and I both know the man can actually act.
Yeah, no, Frank Grillo, I think because of the kinds of movies that he takes, and the kinds of roles that he takes is known as secondary action guy or lead action guy in B movie. But he actually is a very good dramatic actor. He looks like a fighter. He looks like an action star. And so he's sort of pigeonholed into those roles. But when given the opportunity to use his chops, he's actually quite good. And he's been in like tons of shit. He's been working since 1992. And he has had a ton of television and film work.
Yeah, he stays busy. He is perpetually a useful addition to virtually any cast he's a part of. Whether that's, again, it's a lead in a smaller project like this or a supporting role in something bigger. So, where do you want to start with this thing? It's kind of like, I mean, the obvious comparison is Groundhog Day because time loop movies. Groundhog Day wasn't the first, but it's a fairly easy touchstone for people when talking about it.
I was going to say, well, the time loop thing is used all throughout film and television, whether it be sci-fi, action, comedy, what have you. They used it on DC's Legends of Tomorrow for an episode. The obvious one, probably the most famous one is Groundhog Day, but they've used it all over the place. Sometimes it's if you have an epiphany, you'll break the time loop. If you solve the puzzle, you'll break the time loop. In this particular case, there was a very specific thing that needed to happen. He needed to basically unplug the machine. He needed to get to the machine, accomplish the goal. One of the reasons why, again, I said this in our little preamble about why we're talking about it, was the name Boss Level points at the idea that this is like a video game. First line of dialogue in this movie is, "I repeat the same day over and over again like I'm on a level of a video game that I can't pass." And I found that interesting because the movie, on a very surface level, plays out kind of like a video game. There are henchmen you have to defeat. There are puzzles you have to solve. There's a boss you have to beat at the end that has a certain pattern to it. And then when you accomplish the final puzzle, you win the game. That's the structure that the movie rests on. What carries the movie and what makes it great are two things. One, Frank Grillo's performance for a silly action movie like this is actually quite good. He's great, because you would think that like it's just all meathead action, but he has these like moments of reflection when the movie gives him a place to breathe. There's for a movie like this to take some time to deal with what would be the emotional consequences of somebody having to live the same day over and over again and constantly being killed, and how that affects somebody. I mean, it's not a deep dive into post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not that. But, I mean, he does struggle with this at times emotionally. So there are emotional beats to this movie.
I think my favorite, not the best, but I think my favorite this movie does what I want anything that has a deliberately comedic undertone to do. It leverages that for something serious.
Yeah.
I think my favorite iteration of that is one time when he wakes up, he always wakes up with a guy swinging a machete at his head.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one time when he's just failed one more time, and he stops the guy from killing him, and he starts hacking into him with this machete, and he just shouts at him, "Why can't you ever let me sleep in?"
Right. Actually, the one I thought you were going to point to was the series of failures where he doesn't even get out of bed. He's hit a point.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Where he just again, when I mentioned that, because I think him getting just killed over and over again in bed that's not very comedic.
No.
But if we're talking about it being emblematic of what he's going through, it is a great one. Especially as someone who has at various points in his life been so depressed that I literally just didn't want to get out of bed. Like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, just go away. Fine, stab me in the head. I don't care. Get out. Just leave. Go away. Be gone.
And that's the strength of the movie, is that it knows what it is, but it, we often talk. We just did Tom and Jerry, and I don't want to have that discussion again. But Tom and Jerry was one of those examples of a movie that I point to it and go, they know they're making general audience surface level crap. They're just trying to keep the bouncy ball moving and the kids entertained. They're not putting a tremendous amount of profundity. They're not putting a lot of profundity into the movie.
No. Hang on, no. It's Tom and Jerry. They didn't put anything into that movie.
Well, that's okay. As an example, there are certain movies where you're just along for the ride, and they're not digging into anything. This movie actually does take the time, despite its silly premise and its action sequences, to take the time and say, there are emotional consequences to what we're doing here. So actors actually have to act. He has a great sequence in the flashback with Naomi Watts, who has also been in everything you've ever watched. And she knows that she's in trouble with Mel Gibson. She knows that she has the big theme of the movie is time, not having enough of it, having lost it, and in the mistakes that you make throughout life. You choose this, not that. You lose time with the ones you love. There's a lot of that going on in this movie. And what would you do if you had an infinite amount of time to make up for your past mistakes in between sword fights and gunshots? That's the fun of this movie. It makes it worth talking about. So there's a scene where she's trying to get him to understand that shit's about to go down, and she needs to do things. She just doesn't have time or the space to explain it to this guy. She just needs to go. And Naomi Watts does a great job of gracefully walking a tightrope to her ultimate demise. It's great. It's like, wow, having just done like Tom and Jerry and then Willy's Wonderland, I wasn't expecting a high level of acting from a movie starring Rashad Evans and Rampage Jackson. But
to be fair, the only thing those guys do is show up at one point and say "Eins, zwei, drei."
Yeah,
because they have to know their.
But that's my point. Like, you look at this, you read the premise, you look at the cast, and you go, "Well, this is going to be silly on top of stupid." And then you realize that there's actually moments of great acting in this movie that elevate the entire experience. We'll talk about it later in the critical review, but amongst the critics, it amassed a 73 out of 100 aggregate rating. And I think some people, without having read them, we'll do that later, some people recognize the quality for it is, and some people just wrote this off on premise alone. They're like, nope, I'm not even going to give it a chance. And there may be some that watched it and didn't get it. But I will tell you, it's a surprising hit for me. Just running through my kind of list of bullet points on the craft, it looks really sharp. The action sequences are very well directed. The acting of Frank Grillo and Naomi Watts is fantastic, and the rest of the cast is sort of fleshed out with over-the-top video game-ish henchmen that are having a blast with their roles. What do you call it? Selena Lowe as Guan Yin. I jokingly said before she's like the best part of the movie, but she looks like she's having a blast as the swordsman character. Will Sasso is not going to win any awards either for his acting, but he's playing main henchman of Mel Gibson, and he does a fine job at it. Mel Gibson gives an understated performance, but and I think that's probably my only. If I have to give a criticism of this film, they don't really give Mel Gibson anything to do. He's there at the end to sort of mustache twirly explain everything away, but even then, he does sort of a emotionless monologue, and then Frank Grillo kills him. And even when he threatens the son, I don't get the level of menace I think they were shooting for. I don't know how much of that is Mel Gibson's a fine actor. I don't know how much of that is Mel Gibson's fault or Joe Carnahan's in that one scene. I don't know what they were going for, but everything about this movie is great except the stuff with Mel Gibson, unfortunately, which is just blah. It's not bad, it's just blah. And I overlooked it because I was having fun with the movie, but as a reviewer, I kind of have to look at it and go, yeah, that could have been better.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that a little bit. I almost think they were going for a really nice kind of meta humor gag about Mel Gibson. Just in the sense that he's like you said, it's understated. He is very clearly the villain, but he's not as over the top as certainly as Mel Gibson has been in the past. And to be clear, in certain cases that was absolutely the right thing to do as an actor in those moments. But I'm with you in the sense that I think you're correct that I didn't quite get the menace from that I wanted. But he does the demagoguery justification of what he wants to do quite well, which is the other big thing that you need from a villain in this kind of position. They have to have a vision, and they have to be able to make you believe that they believe it, even if you think it's stupid. It has to be genuine in that respect, and he nails that part of it, I think. So,
what was his motivation? What was the villain's plan here? Because I think that lost me.
He wanted to remake the world, because this is what the thing does. It will essentially annihilate all matter and then reconfigure it, kind of like the Omega-13 device from Galaxy Quest.
Okay.
He just wants to remake it with a very, he wants to be God. He wants to remake it the way he wants it to be remade. So he wants to skip a bunch of events. He wants to, we'll never have 9/11. Adolf Hitler will never be a thing.
Okay, got it. So there was something pre-programmed into the Osiris that would have said the world would be remade absent these things.
Yeah,
got it. Okay. As a relatively simple motivation, that works fine.
Yeah,
not to steal your gimmick, but boy, does physics not work that way.
We have got. When they're dealing with what they're dealing with, we've gone so far deep down the theoretical rabbit hole that I'm just not gonna. I'm not gonna touch that one.
Well, no, and I don't. But can I be you for just one moment? In the realm of theoretical physics and the use of time, if you remove Hitler from the timeline, nature abhors a vacuum. Something else comes to replace it. Maybe something less horrifying. Probably something more horrifying. But the stupidity, the Family Guy dealt with this. What if you could go back and erase 9/11? And, of course, the gag being that Brian saves the day on 9/11. 9/11 doesn't happen, but then George Bush doesn't get reelected. John Kerry, I think, does, and the world goes to hell in a handbasket. They do another gag where he does something less stupid, and he instead pushes J.K. Rowling in the pool, and he ends up writing the Harry Potter books, but that unearths another disaster. My point being that there's no reason to have made the villain this philosophically intelligent, but it irks me personally to know that if you're going down the realm of I'm going to erase evil things that happen, more evil things will just come along and replace them, and you might actually make things worse. That's just the way just the way theoretical physics works.
Hang on. It's not in this case. What you're talking about is, again, kind of like, pardon me. What you're talking about with how Family Guy kind of talks about it, and plenty of other movies have, or television shows have referenced this. What you're dealing with there is very, very different from what you're dealing with here.
Mm-hmm.
What you're dealing with there is, I go back in time, I change one thing, and I come back to the future and see what changed. Because everything else would then proceed as if it had normally. What he's talking about is the complete annihilation of every molecule in the universe, and then reconstructing it at a specific point, absent those things, but time will have essentially continued as though they had happened.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, how do you have the 20th century without the Holocaust?
I don't know what that would look like. But that's again, I'm only bringing this up as a discussion of the physics that they're talking, the deeply theoretical stuff they're talking about here.
Okay.
If you disassemble every atom in the universe and then reassemble it, does everything start from and then reassemble it, but you deliberately exclude certain things? What does it look like? And I don't know. No one does.
I think that's the strength of the movie that it engenders this kind of conversation, though, which is another, I think, plus in its favor.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We're kind of drilling down deep into essentially a throwaway plot point here. But...
Yeah, Joe Carnahan and Frank Grillo going, "What are you doing to my movie? This isn't. Can't you focus on the swordplay?"
Which is itself perfectly acceptable, if unremarkable in a handful of ways.
I don't know.
There's some good action sequences.
I wish we had Andrew Graham here to talk about that, because he uses sort of like a traditional fencing stance, and she isn't, and I'm wondering how realistic that is, that he would have bested her in a one-on-one sword contest.
Some of that drills down into the specific interactions. There's a couple that annoy me. The sword behind the back thing, or the hand behind the back, that's a thing depending on the rule set you're using. If you're in a real fight, a real duel, you would be using it might be behind the back for balance purposes in a handful of I'm striking a pose and I'm going to move. You would not really keep it there. Right. Because you'd rather use it for something else. You'd rather grab the blade. You'd rather grab their hand. Again, it's a whole other appendage you have. You may as well put it to some kind of use.
Right. But for having a sword fight to the death, I would have assumed he would have used his other hand to, punch her if the opportunity arose.
Yeah. That said, for the most part, it's all grounded in some very, real stuff. Frank Grillo goes out of his way to make his action sequences, especially his fighting ones, as believable as possible.
Right.
So, again, does he look like someone who spent years mastering the blade? No. Is he someone who spent years mastering the blade? Also no. He's someone who put a lot of effort into it he put a lot of intense effort into it for a slightly more limited period of time, but that's what most of that is. And I didn't watch that and go, this is terrible.
No. And I'm not trying to take the piss out of it. It was one of those things where I looked at it, I'm like, this is fun to watch, and points for style. I don't know how believable it is, but is it supposed to be? Not really.
I mean, we lost believability when she dodged fire from an Uzi. Believe it or not, I will buy her essentially dodging a couple of rounds from a handgun. That's unlikely, but not impossible, especially if she kind of gets a running start at it. Once you introduce a 30-round magazine fired at with that rate of fire, no. No, just no.
Right. Anything else about the craft? Because I think we've covered it.
I mean, again, there's some good laughs to be had here. When he gets, I think the character he calls Pam,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets that obscenely expensive handgun from her, and it turns out, no, this was Hitler's gun.
He's like, "You're trying to kill me with Hitler's gun?"
I thought this couldn't get any worse.
Yeah.
He shoots her like 4 times. Like, that was for the Jews. And he's walking up, he goes back and shoots her 2 more times. Like, yeah, that was those 2. I just got a laugh out of it because, yeah, you try to kill me with Hitler's gun, because to be clear, it's fairly evident that the character is not a Nazi. I mean, her partner in this endeavor is a Hispanic lady.
Mm-hmm.
So she's pretty clearly not a Nazi in the traditional like white supremacist sense. But his just kind of like, really? Of all the things you could be trying to kill me with, you didn't even have the gun that he offed himself with. So there's comedy there to be had. There's some fun stuff with him and his kid bonding. I enjoyed this movie a lot. It's not great. I mean, you know what you're getting into, but it blends the action with the humor, with the emotional kind of core of what's going on in a very, very solid way. My big gripe with Tom and Jerry, and I'm using that as a direct point of comparison because these are both they're designed to be very general audience movies. A phrase you used there, and I think that's accurate. That is kind of the intent behind both of them. Tom and Jerry, unfortunately, wound up doing a lot of just, we're going to stretch this out to over 90 minutes because that's the length that we think theatrical releases should be. Here's a bunch of crappy music with no characters, no character development, no writing to speak of, and bad slapstick. Here, they took a movie that's designed for the general audience and there's going to be big action sequences, there's going to be laughs, including Frank Grillo getting hilariously thrown through the window of a bus at high speed a few different times. One in particular where he gets launched through it and he's laying there dying and he's going, okay, I have to do this better next time, die already, quit wasting my time and just die.
Meanwhile, people are stepping on his face.
One old lady does in fact step on him as she's trying to exit the bus, yes. Or his bit about, being stabbed really hurts. That's the most painful way I've died, apart from the time I was shot in the dick.
Yeah, just as a point of comparison, and I don't want to launch into a side tangent of the merits of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Let me just talk about this one episode. I talked about that with Jesse because that was the season that we actually reviewed, and I think Jesse and I talked about that, or I've definitely referenced this episode before, where every character in the time loop kind of gets to a point where they don't know what to do next, and they're just stuck, and they go, "Fuck it, I'm gonna have some fun," and it's a little bit different here, but there's always a sequence in these time loop things where you see the character having fun with the structure of the time loop. And so in the DC's Legends of Tomorrow, she's like eating pie and whipped cream, and she's playing instruments, and she's just doing all kinds of bizarre stuff because she knows she can and nothing matters. And here, there's like a sequence of events, one of him being shot in the dick, and they do this a few times throughout the movie where like
they flash back to different attempts.
Yeah, they flash back to different things, and it's literally a sight gag, but it's a hilarious sight gag, and it does catch you off guard, and it is where the movie has its most fun.
And so the point there, this movie takes a silly general audience execution of a premise, but actually gives it some both humor and emotional grounding while maintaining its general audience appeal and tone. If you're going to make a general audience movie, that I'd rather it be done with this level of thought as opposed to Tom and Jerry with rapping pigeons. and a soundtrack that instantly dated it to about 3.5 days ago. However, if you're going to insert a lot of, pop culture tunes, this movie, we haven't talked about the music for this yet, but as a brief note, there's a lot of very recognizable songs in this movie. I mean, the opening the opening sequence is done to that Boston song, and their name always escapes me. I want to say like Foreplay.
It's Foreplay / Long Time. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's it. And you get some very recognizable tunes in here. There's stuff playing when he goes to the bar, that kind of thing. And if you're going to do that, you really have to be careful about using contemporary music. Like, Tom and Jerry did it for a bunch of stuff that won't be remembered in 6 minutes, much less, 8 years. And some of the music here has proven to be a bit more timeless than Tom auto-tune singing at a piano because LOL Kanye.
So actually, if you're interested in hearing that Boston song, it's actually from the album Boston, which came out August 25th, 1976. I was 2 months old. And it's got More Than a Feeling on there, which I feel like was, if not my high school theme song, my high school class's theme song, was one of the classes that graduated around the same time I was in high school. Rock and Roll Band, Let Me Take You Home Tonight. It's a great Boston album. You can actually listen to it on AmazonMusic.com. If you sign up for a free 30 days of AmazonMusic.com right now using our link, which is getamazonmusic.com/W2M network, getamazonmusic.com/W2M network, you can stream this Boston album or as many Boston albums as you like. It's great. It's a great service. It works just like Spotify and all these other streaming services out there, but better. Most of the music in the known universe, things you haven't even heard of, because I've plugged a few of them on these podcasts, are on AmazonMusic.com. What have you got to lose? Have a free 30 days on us. Not only can you check out Foreplay Long Time, which was used great in Boss Level from the band Boston off the album Boston, but you can also check out the Boss Level original motion picture soundtrack score, which was done by Clinton Shorter. So all of the ambient music you hear in the background, that hypes up the action sequences and whatnot, is on there for you to listen to, which is also available on AmazonMusic.com. So why not check out some Boston, check out some Boss Level, check out all the music on us, AmazonMusic.com, get AmazonMusic.com/W2M network.
Yep. And again, that's kind of my last bit on that for the movie. So good use of music, good. Just if you think you'll like this movie, you will. I tend to imagine that what you see is what you get in that respect. Yeah, I enjoyed myself watching this, so I imagine it will, fade into obscurity quickly because most of the things I enjoy tend to have that fate.
I mean, it's on Hulu. If you're done, watching Young Rock or Nomadland, there's no reason why you can't take 2 hours and watch this too. It's fine.
I would advise watching this instead of Young Rock. Boy,
so would I. Holy cow!
Wow,
what a piece of garbage that is.
That's mistakes were made.
Look, I just as a fan of television, Jesus Christ, is that show bad?
To say nothing of their. Have they introduced their Vince McMahon cast yet?
No. And I've watched the first 2 episodes. I haven't watched number. That was what happened this morning. Was like, I have some time to kill before I record with Robert, and I've already finished watching Boss Level. All right, I'll clear off my Hulu queue. So I watched Snowfall. I watched The Connors, and I'm like, I have one more left. It's Young Rock though. Let me see what I haven't watched on Netflix yet.
Yeah, it's... Oof. That's a big oof.
Yeah, it is. Say. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on to the news, yes?
Here we go. Yep. And now in the news in Hollywood.
And now, I'm up at News Flash.
All right, our first story involves some casting news that I found interesting. Our article comes from Variety.com. Impeachment, American crime story, which unfortunately its production got delayed because of COVID, and I've been anxiously awaiting this. This is about the Bill Clinton impeachment trial. casts Edie Falco as Hillary Clinton. I believe Edie Falco.
Mark,
Yeah, what?
Mark,
Who?
I'm sorry. I apologize. I mean, I'm happy to interrupt discussion of Hillary Clinton at any and all points.
Oh, we were more discussing Edie Falco, but what?
We have breaking news.
Hey, everybody! Do you want to play a game called Musical Chairs?
Let's play a game called Musical Chairs. There's only one winner, so you better beware. When the music stops, you sit on a chair. That's how you play Musical Chairs.
All right, yes, it's movie release date Musical Chairs. Oh boy.
How's your ulcer, Mark?
It's a tumor, and it's currently going, I'm a tumor, I'm a tumor, I'm a tumor, I'm a tumor, I'm a tumor. So in the last 24 hours, a bunch of movies once again moved their release dates, wreaking havoc on my calendar and my heart condition. Our first story comes from Deadline.com. Universal shifts release for F9 onto Venom Tuesday, because, oh boy, why can't we just have one movie we're going to cover per weekend? Let's have two. Let's have three. Let's have a dozen. And
Look,
Minions, The Rise of Gru, heads to 2022.
Just save ourselves and not talk about Venom 2, yeah?
We can't not talk about Venom 2. Jason Teasley with plots.
We absolutely could.
Because
we won't,
Carnage.
But we hang on. Look, we are going to talk about it.
Yes, sir.
But I'm always going to pitch you talking about anything else, including something as profoundly stupid as John Cena being the younger brother of Vin Diesel.
Not to be an alarmist or negative about the future, but Universal has shifted the theatrical release dates for its much-delayed Titan tentpoles F9 and Illumination's Minions: The Rise of Gru. F9 will no longer go May 28th, but rather June 25th. All right, so let's stop there and just talk about that one for a second. Actually, let me read this next paragraph.
So for the to be very clear, this means Venom is going to shift its release date.
Yeah, well, that's what I was waiting for last night. When this hit, all I could do was be on Twitter waiting for, and Sony has moved Venom to up your ass. I hear that slight shift in theatrical dating for F9 has to do with major overseas markets. They're still not open despite New York City reopening this Friday and Los Angeles expecting to reopen in the near future as COVID cases decrease and vaccinations increase in the city. There is a chance as overseas markets do improve during the pandemic that F9 could begin its theatrical journey abroad before domestic. All of that said, Universal is trying to have as many markets go at once for F9 as possible. So
look, this is the Fast and the Furious movies suck, right? There's 1.5 good movies in 9 films, and yeah, I'm gonna prejudge F9. Deal with it. At this point, they are very clearly as much an attempt at international films as they are domestic. They go all over the globe. They have very little dialogue. They want you to look at the pretty pictures and the big car chases and the explosions. They try to make these as anodyne as possible when it comes to mass market appeal across the globe. So much so that if they only released this in the United States, I genuinely do not care what the pandemic situation is. If they had to limit this to a domestic thing, they're losing money hand over fist on this project. Mm-hmm. So they need mass markets. Now, the same thing, this is why I think Venom's going to wind up moving. We talked about this when we talked about Venom. I have something else to blame China for, because this movie should have been one and done. Instead, a handful of overseas markets, most notably China, but with a shout-out to, I think, both Japan and India were fairly big markets for it. People went, more Venom! We don't need to actually see what's going on in a movie. I mean, and to further be fair to that point, a fairly common practice, believe it or not, given how big a market China is to have a bunch of scenes that are filmed exclusively for that region's release of the film. This has been a Marvel practice for a long time. There's all kinds of scenes with Iron Man interacting with Chinese actors that were done exclusively for a movie's release in the Chinese market. Bet you didn't know that, did you?
No, that's interesting.
You xenophobic jerk. You, sir, are not a man of culture.
I never said I was. Minions 2 will now open on July 1st, 2022, instead of July 2nd, and the article goes on to say, Minions is the most profitable franchise for Universal, hence the huge release date change for that pick. The studio is making sure that the pick's promotional partners are able to join the ride and support their brand up through the film's 2022 release. The Gru Minions movie combined through 4 titles have grossed over $3.7 billion at the global box office. So, you know...
Well, one of the nice things about the Minions movie, and I don't mean this in terms of its mass market appeal, it's any animated movie. Unless you've made something that's horribly dated or just not very good, you're not going to lose a whole lot, you know? All the voice actors are still going to be relevant. They're still going to be willing to come back. You know, whoever they have doing... I don't know if Steve Carell is doing the voice of young Gru. He probably is. But if it's somebody else... you're not risking that. You know, when you push back something like the Fast and the Furious franchise 8 billion times, you know, everybody gets older. Vin Diesel is not going to be young forever. John Cena's desperately hoping to actually spin this off into something useful in his acting career. Actors in that respect, again, they heat up or they cool off. That's a lot less of an issue with an animated project. So Minions pushing back a little bit is not the end of the world for it as a financial investment. And as mentioned, that's a wildly profitable, wildly successful franchise in general, all of which I've enjoyed personally to varying degrees. So, yeah, they're gonna give it a bit. They're going to see what happens. And that's kind of playing with house money. Some stuff you can't afford to take the risk on waiting. Minions, I feel, is a fairly safe, you know what, put it off. We want people to go see this in theaters and have fun with it.
The other two, we haven't heard anything from Venom just yet, but I'm sure that's coming. The other thing that was released in terms of movie release musical chairs was A Quiet Place, then took its spot. So... May 28th was F9, Cruella, and Infinite. F9 vacates, leaving only Cruella and Infinite left. And even Cruella, we didn't really talk about it too much. They released a trailer for it. Alexis and I briefly mentioned it, sort of an aside remark about the trailer. But there was rumor going on that Disney was going to pull it from theaters and just make it exclusive to Disney Plus, like they did with Artemis Fowl and The One and Only Ivan and all of that. Plus, it would have added to the list of movies.
I have a hard time believing that they're contractually allowed to do that with something starring Emma Stone.
Who knows? Either way, they are now committed as of this recording. This may change the moment I hit post on it. But as of this recording, they are committed to a full theatrical release on May 28th for Cruella starring Emma Stone. So with F9 vacating May 28th, Cruella kind of had that date all to itself because, people might have gone to see Infinite, but Cruella would have been the big thing. Now, it's back to having some fairly, not in the same genre, but in terms of popularity, some fairly stiff competition again. Because A Quiet Place, Part 2, which has moved around more times than I care to recount, was moved up to September 17th earlier this year, and now has moved to May 28th. And Infinite is off that spot and was relocated to September 24th. A Quiet Place Part 2, directed by John Krasinski, starring Emily Blunt. Paramount held an even splashy red carpet premiere for A Quiet Place Part 2 in New York City on March 8th, days before the country was forced to almost entirely shut down. Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah. Have you seen... You should watch the first one. I think you'd enjoy it.
The schedule shift comes a week after Paramount announced intentions to shorten the theatrical window, which we discussed briefly, I think last week when we talked about the Paramount Plus rollout, with plans to put A Quiet Place Part 2, Mission Impossible 7, and other upcoming titles on the nascent streaming service Paramount Plus after 45 days on the big screen. I mean, I guess the Paramount was inspired to accelerate release plans for A Quiet Place 2 for several reasons. For one, the move allows the studio and its parent company Viacom CBS to sooner start marketing the film as a buzzy offering for its newly rebranded streaming platform, which launched on March 4th, which is today, as a matter of fact. Well, today's March 5th. With the 45-day window, the sequel to A Quiet Place 2 should premiere on Paramount Plus in July. The studio was also optimistic because the Biden administration recently announced the U.S. is on track to have enough COVID-19 vaccine doses for every adult American by the end of May. And this weekend, movie theaters in New York City have been approved to reopen. Blah blah blah. So, I think what you're seeing here is with F9, they're trying to give it a little bit more time. Universally, throughout the world, to have as much screen space as possible to maximize its weekend take and its long overhaul. I think in this particular case, the sooner they can get stuff into the theaters, the sooner they can get it onto Paramount Plus. And to paraphrase the good folks over at Midnight's Edge, who are of course doing a Yoda impression, begun the streaming war has. So now, you've got WWE on Peacock, you've got, big theatrical releases showing up on Paramount Plus earlier than expected. You've got the entire slate of Warner Brothers movies on HBO Max, same-day releases in theaters. And then there's Disney Plus that owns your childhood. Everyone is competing for your eyeballs, and they're trying to make big splashy moves in order to do that, and that's what these amounted to, essentially. So... I don't know. And just to close out this portion of this segment, you have any other thoughts on them moving around A Quiet Place and Infinite?
Not especially. A Quiet Place moving around makes some sense. It's not. I don't think it will.
Oh, hang on. And Peter Rabbit 2 moved from wherever it was in the middle of the summer to May 14th.
No one cares about Peter Rabbit 2. Wasn't there already a sequel to that stupid movie?
You keep saying that, and I don't think that's true.
Oh, you know what I think it is? I think I've just been seeing advertisements for it for about 2 years at this point.
Yeah, all of these have. I mean, you many times I've seen the fucking Black Widow trailer?
No. Like, I saw advertisements for Peter Rabbit 2 in, 2000, late 18, early 19, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-pandemic, they were saying this is going to come out before theater. I think Peter Rabbit 2 suffered a date loss and had to move before the pandemic. And then the pandemic.
I feel like I could write a book called "And Then the Pandemic." Speaking of the pandemic, we had a marketing release for Space Jam 2, the Legacy, a new Legacy. Yeah, that's what it's called. Space Jam, a new Legacy, which comes out later this summer on HBO Max and in theater, same day release. And they released a bunch of pictures to promote the movie, but they also released a plot synopsis.
We talk about the plot first because good God.
Okay. I'm trying to find the plot synopsis. Now more plot details about the movie's father-son dynamic are coming to light, and EW exclusive reveals James will be playing a heightened versions of himself with a fictional family. The movie's main conflict will be James struggling to relate to his son Dom, whose main interest is creating video games. Eventually, Dom's tech skills catch the attention of a CGI humanoid named LG Rhythm, played by Don Cheadle, who manages to trap the father-son...
Get it?
Who manages to trap the father-son duo in the Warner 3000 Entertainment serververse, and James must reassemble the Looney Tunes in order to defeat the formidable Goon Squad and escape the digital world. Okay, what did I... go ahead and just react the way I know you want to, and let me see if I can actually find the thing that I sent you guys.
Well, yeah, because you sent us a thing that included... They're going to be... server hopping through all the Warner Brothers properties. So they're going to show up in The Matrix. They're going to show up in a DC movie. They're going to show up in whatever else Warner Brothers owns that's loosely profitable. LeBron James will drop into the middle of Mad Max. Who knows?
Okay, here it is. Yep. All right, and it did come from Entertainment Weekly. Space Jam: A New Legacy includes cameos from The Matrix, Mad Max, DC, and Casablanca franchises as LeBron James
and his... Casablanca cinematic universe has begun, Mark.
I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. His son traveled through the Warner 3000 Entertainment serververse, whilst Algae Rhythm tries to steal LeBron's Instagram followers, to which my reaction was side-eye.
Instagram followers, Mark. They were battling for the freedom of the Looney Tunes as well as the freedom of Michael Jordan in the original. The original Space Jam is a 90-minute commercial of no artistic value. But at least they gave us stakes. Don Cheadle wants LeBron James's IG credibility. What the hell are we doing?
And you bitched and complained about Tom and Jerry. This sounds infinitely worse.
No. Hang on. I say no with one caveat. I'm not trying to start a flame war here. But the Looney Tunes have a much better track record than Tom and Jerry when it comes to theatrical appearances.
Okay.
Now, if you want to talk about the character designs they've thrown out for this because they released artwork, and how much my faith has been profoundly shaken in the wisdom of the morons behind this, that's a different subject.
So I have an article up from CNET because Lola Bunny started trending on Lola Bunny and then intern Jessica Rabbit because porn.
Wait. Did they hold on. I saw the redesign for Lola Bunny.
Yeah.
Did they seriously mess with Jessica Rabbit?
No, but that's the comparison being made. That like
Lola Bunny is not Jessica Rabbit.
No, but the point. Okay, let me introduce the topic and then we can parse this out. This comes from CNET. Space Jam's Lola Bunny goes from very sexualized to sporty in sequel. Dr. Malcolm.
No. Whoever wrote that is trying to be very nice. She is not sporty, okay? That's my objection to this, believe it or not. You want to give her... You want to tone down the ratio of her, chest to waist to hips? I don't care that much. Like,
I should fucking hope not. In my Looney Tunes characters, what I like is a lot of sex appeal. I mean, go on. I will rant in a few minutes.
I certainly don't object to an attractively drawn
rabbit
character.
to a tantalizingly drawn rabbit.
An anthropomorphic rabbit, sure. Look, Mark, I can't help it if your narrow understanding of the broad spectrum of what people are attracted to.
Look, I'm not against furries. I'm not saying that. Whatever you're into, Godspeed and party on, as you would say. I'm just saying, maybe if you're on the Twitter and you're spanking it to Lola Bunny, keep it to your fucking self. And if she's not being drawn to your specific, hard, erect penis standards, don't throw a Twitter tantrum about it. Go in a room and sulk privately.
Look, the wild overreaction from Twitter is exactly what Twitter does. It wildly overreacts to everything. That's what the platform rewards you for doing.
Sure.
So my personal objection to this is not so much that they redesigned her. Again, if you want to tone down her ratios a little bit, sure, that's fine. I'm not up in arms over that. I take more issue with it from a purely artistic perspective. Like, you're looking at the side-by-side, right?
Yep.
Look at that. Anyone listening, anyone watching this, anyone listening, you can look this stuff up. I'm not looking at it right now. But look at that. That is a 40-year-old soccer mom who has given up on life and is half baked out of her mind on some combination of booze and marijuana. Those are lifeless, dead eyes.
Okay, so I was thinking about this, because, how do I want to frame this argument other than Twitter's filled with perverts? And I'm one of them, but I like to keep my perversions private, he said on a podcast, meant for public consumption. God damn it.
Well, hold on. You're not... Look, anyone with a moderate degree of self-reflection and honesty about who they are, we've all got our stuff.
So here's the thing.
Acknowledging that you have your stuff is not bad. If your Twitter feed is full of likes, retweets, comments, quote tweets, and whatnot, filling the world with filth, I question a little bit about how much value you have as a human being. But you saying, I'm a person, I have sexual desires. Okay, rock on, man. I genuinely don't care, Mark, that you're a sexual person. You have kids. I kind of assume it's part of your makeup.
I've had sex at least twice. 3 years apart. Now listen, here's my thing, because I think in concept, hey, look, we don't want to have this group of ragtag, goofy, fucking individual Looney Tunes characters and then Sexy Rabbit, especially in 2021. Okay, well, they're basketball players, so they should all kind of have a sporty look. Okay, I'm with you so far. I'm thinking about two sporty women currently occupying the zeitgeist, depending on which part of the world you're looking in. You have Clarissa Shields, who has her own dedicated all-female boxing pay-per-view that's actually airing tonight on Fight. Okay? She looks like an athlete. She may or may not be attractive to you, but she looks... She's the best female boxer in the world, and she looks like it. I'm thinking about like the two black female tennis players. They look like athletes.
Williams sisters?
Yeah. And Jane Cargill. And she specifically came to mind because when in the run-up to the stupid Cody Rhodes, Shaq, her Red Velvet match that was on Dynamite this past week, which I finally caught up and watched, they didn't use footage of them lifting weights or doing wrestling moves, like practicing wrestling moves. They filmed them shooting baskets and doing layups and dunks and whatnot. And so Jade Cargill was wearing what you would wear to play basketball shorts and a tank top. She may have been even wearing a basketball jersey. I didn't look that closely. Either way, it was a tank top type shirt, which is a basketball jersey, and basketball shorts, loose basketball shorts. And she looked like a basketball player. She looked like an athletic basketball player. And here's the thing. I think, to your point, and this is about the only place where I really agree with you, I think they took the idea of let's make her look sporty like we're going to do with Bugs Bunny and Taz and everybody else involved in this cartoon, and took it too far in the other direction to she looks like she rolled into a pile of dirty laundry and ran out the door, which is what this looks like.
Yeah, again, my big objection is, in fact, just the character design from a purely artistic perspective. Like, it just doesn't look good. Yeah.
I think I wrote in our Twitter chat, like, I don't care that... Because the argument is they unsexied her, and that I don't care about. It's their IP, it's their character, they have that right, and I'm not going to lose sleep over the unsexy cartoon character. If I really want that bad enough, there's only a zillion places I can find it. And I
don't have an objection to them. Like I said, you can desexualize the character without making her look like
a pile of laundry.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, she's the beleaguered soccer mom hurrying to drop her kids off after rolling out of bed too late and a little bit hungover from too much red wine the night
Look, I'm not
before.
saying you have to like make her like super muscular or anything, but maybe like as artists, find that point in between, as you keep saying, like dirty soccer mom and Jessica Rabbit, and think Jade Cargill. Like Jade Cargill, like I said, looks like a basketball player, or think like Clarissa Shields or any number of female fucking athletes. Like, why couldn't they have kept that in mind?
There's a giant number of female fighters that you could have drawn inspiration from visually that are very clearly athletic, and to be, I don't mean this, and this is going to sound horrible. Not every fighter is attractive, male or female. They run the gamut. You can find both. And again, there's certainly also a wide disparity between what individuals will find attractive.
I was going to say Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt is a dainty-looking little girl. She's also a female athlete. Could have used her as a model. Could have used Gina Carano. Gina Carano, at her height, wasn't like super muscular, but she looked like an athlete.
Yeah, if you wanted to go, I don't disagree with that. There's a lot that you could have done that wasn't this.
That wasn't a pile of laundry with rabbit ears.
Yeah, and I don't get the character design. I get the studio note. We don't want her to be a walking wet dream, right? I get that. That's fair. That's a very fair thing to put out there that, hey, we don't need the bunny to exist solely to make bugs want to make a bunch of little bunnies. To be abundantly clear, that was not the only purpose Lola served in the original. She actually could play the game. She had personality. She had
She was giving the other character shit.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So 2 points of note. So, like I said, there was this giant overreaction from dirty pervs on Twitter to where it was like, they took away my sexualized rabbit. Remember when we used to have Jessica Rabbit? Oh, good times. Okay? And then Jessica Rabbit started trending on Twitter. You pervs.
Anyone that objects to I don't know what to tell you to anyone who objects to Jessica Rabbit. She's not bad. She was just drawn that way.
I think but I think the point that people were trying to get at was, if they tried to redo in Please Hollywood, I know I'm putting this out into the universe.
No.
This is not an idea for you to run away with.
When I say don't, I'm talking to Hollywood, not you. Make your point, but I know where you're going, so please, Hollywood, don't.
If you decided to remake Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit would not look that way. They would take everything about that character and why she was drawn that way on purpose and lose the plot entirely. That said,
as a brief aside, Jessica Rabbit was drawn that way as a deliberate artistic choice about that type. She's a type,
right?
She was, and her
well,
character.
They were doing parody of noir, and so sexy woman walks into my office and my world turned upside down, says PI.
Yeah, that's still a trope,
right? Well, now any woman that walks into a PI's office is a giant pile of laundry. You have to understand, but she's a strong woman, and that's the important thing. Listen,
look, the giant pile of laundry who's struggling with being divorced from a giant bag of dicks that was her ex-husband, but she's still a strong, independent woman who's also a doctor and doesn't actually need this help. But boy, wouldn't it be swell if?
You know that my Facebook advertisement for this is Mark and Robert have a long discussion about giant piles of laundry who are strong and don't need no man.
Sure. I do not object to that.
I'm going to get a lot of side eye from women, but that's fine. That's what I'm here for. So just a couple of in this CNET article they posted some Twitter reactions. These are hilarious. Space Jam 2 scene. LeBron James. Hello, Lola. You do not make anyone horny. I respect you for basketball. Lola Bunny. Thank you. Next one. New Lola looks like the kind of girl you'd meet. Take two. No, new Lola looks like the kind of girl you'd meet in rehab when she asked to bum a Newport. And pretty soon, she's at your place pretending to help you look for your stuff that she just stole. Ow.
Oh, God.
I once turned on a TV in a hotel in London, and Space Jam was on. I'd never seen it. I was busy in 1996. So I said, "Who's that?" My then-boyfriend said, "That's Lola Bunny. You don't remember Lola Bunny?" I said no, and he said, "In a way I'll never forget. I remember Lola Bunny." Okay?
Oh, God. So that look, the first two of those, one of those was a nice comment on the culture. The second one was our gripe. Like, it wasn't how dare she not be sexy. It was, look at this.
Yeah. I have a very distinct memory when Space Jam was coming out of some kind of interview with two of the animators. One of them was enthusiastically gushing on how hot Lola was. The other appeared to be face-palming. It's for the best. She made too many kids into furries. For some reason, this makes me curious how Jessica Rabbit will look when Roger Rabbit 2 comes out. Oh, fuck you, pal. Just stop putting that into the universe.
Don't. You can't. You couldn't remake that movie if you wanted to. It's just a bad idea.
Thoughts are with the person whose job it was to look at all the accounts being horny for old Lola Bunny and are upset. And are upset they are just horny for new Lola Bunny, and then summarize this people share their feelings.
Oh god!
I'm gonna start that. You're not reviewing that with us because I decided to spare you, but I'm gonna start my review of Space Jam 2 with Alexis going. So I was sitting there, pantsless in the theater, hand on my wanker, and realized none of these characters make me want to spank it. What a disappointment!
You don't know if you're being serious or doing a bit.
And that'll be my greatest joy of all. Let's move on.
Oh god! To be clear, some of those Twitter reactions, I haven't looked through them because I don't want to, but some of those are funny.
Some of those are fucking hilarious. All right, folks. Here we are. Your favorite bit, the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
The critical review on Damn You Hollywood is brought to you by Grammarly. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. I'm sure many of these reviews we're about to tear apart were written using Grammarly, and that's what saved them from being horribly written, punctuation-riddled, mistake-riddled, just garbage. You know, Grammarly helped these people at least make something that was readable for us to criticize. So for you listeners of Damn You Hollywood here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, brought to you by the W2M Network, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. So to download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. Alrighty, Elizabeth Vincentelli of the New York Times, top critic, Red Star. Red Star, Robert Winfree.
New
You
York
ready?
Times, a former newspaper.
An increasingly tedious amount of repetitive violence played for laughs.
Sounds like a good time. I don't know. I don't get. Why is that an objection? Okay, why is that an objection? It's actually part of the. It's actually a giant part of the appeal. 2, I don't know how you could miss the attention and the attempt to making this an emotional movie when it at the times when it is appropriately required. If you don't feel a twinge of something about the guy trying to bond with his son over, Street Fighter, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm not saying you should be again, this is not Schindler's List, but it's an emotionally resonant sequence for anyone putting forth the effort, the good faith effort to be a good critic, okay, I'm sorry. I actually apologize to you, reviewer. You write for the New York Times. Nothing good or good faith has come out of that rags in my lifetime. So I apologize for for assuming a degree of competence out of anything related to that particular establishment. My mistake.
Ignatly Vidnevetsky of the AV Club, top critic. The sentimentality is as rote as the movie's 80s lunchbox nostalgia, which offers up a Wilhelm scream, some entry-level Raiders of the Lost Ark trivia, and a trip to an arcade tournament without the grating, nerdy investment of, say, Ernest Cline. Oof.
I'm not sure about the 80s nostalgia jab.
Yeah, I don't know where he got that from.
That one seems a little bit weird. Also, of course there's a Wilhelm scream. Everybody uses a Wilhelm scream. if you're complaining about that, you're just looking for stuff to bitch about.
I was going to say, that's in the sound editor's computer. It just is.
Yeah, like, come on, man. That's not a legitimate complaint. It really... Especially if there's 80 of them, you can complain about it. If there's one that they attach to Gronk getting tossed out of a helicopter because Lord knows that man can't emote, then you just kind of go with it. Come on.
Benjamin Lee of The Guardian, top critic. As the upteenth time loop movie we've seen of late, Boss Level never offers a convincing enough argument for the gimmick to be leaned on yet again. A mishmash of better movies blended into something a little bland. I don't understand what movies these guys thought they were watching.
I mean, I also don't know how prevalent the time loop thing is at this point.
Yeah, considering the only one that I could think of to remember was an episode of DC's Legends of Tomorrow.
I mean, I could come up with a couple of other movies, but I'm really at a loss to go, yeah, here's 5 other time loop films they shoved into a blender to create this.
It just says, okay, so list of films featuring time loops.
All right.
Let's do these in... So, there's 2 in 2021. The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, which hasn't come out yet, to my knowledge, and Boss Level. There was 1 in 2020. A whole 1. Palm Springs.
Okay.
There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in 2019. There was See You Yesterday, Russian Doll, which, isn't that a television show? Yes.
Probably.
Yeah, starring one of the gals from Orange is the New Black. The Obituary of Tundi Johnson. Okay. Coco D. Coco Da. Happy Death Day to You. Hey, one I've heard of. And a film. Game Over. There was 1 in 2018 called The Fair. There were several in 2017. Reset, Naked, Happy Death Day, The Endless, A Day Before I Fall, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar... oh, no, that's 2016, sorry. And it just goes on like that.
Point being, these guys have no...
Okay, hang on. Look, Doctor Strange was listed as 1 in 2016. So that one incident at the end of the movie to solve the problem.
Okay. Buddy. If you really wanted to say it's somewhat unoriginal or uninspired, that's all you have to say. Now you've made yourself look like an idiot because we just went through the effort to fact-check your claim and found it profoundly wanting. Shame on you.
Nate Adams, the only critic. Well, that's a lie. There's many critics here. We're reading several. Boss Level twists the Groundhog Day formula into another mindless gimmick where a few solid punches are thrown and gratuitously violent deaths run the gamut for 2 hours, but fails to bottle Frank Grillo's energy into something worthwhile. Did you miss the scene of him talking to his kid and his wife? And oh God, we went through all this already. Fuck this guy.
Yeah, this is someone who fell asleep at various points during the movie, and you at least would have an excuse when that happened.
I'm on the CPAP now. I've been for quite some time.
I know. Like, you don't have the problem. Buddy, you mean you need a CPAP machine. You've got some sleep apnea. You got to fix that. It's potentially life-threatening.
Sarah Ward of Concrete Playground attempts to paper over a slight narrative with rhythmically choreographed punches, bullet swords, and stunts, plus greeting card level life lessons. Ugh.
Oh, for God's sake. Okay. The number of films that have emotional cores that go beyond, that cannot be distilled down to greeting card life lessons is actually really, really small. You know, we just mentioned Schindler's List a few times. Believe it or not, you could shove that into a greeting card if you wanted to. Like, that's the ability to effectively distill something down to a singular phrase is not an inherent negative. I mean, again, if we're talking Schindler's List, here's a postcard for you. Life has value. There,
right.
I took one of the most acclaimed movies of all time and distilled it to a greeting card. Does that somehow make it less of a movie? No. Last one,
Simon Morado of Movie Squad, which I think this comes from some sort of radio station, 92.1.
Only one person doing reviews doesn't make a squad, buddy.
There is stuff to like here. There's fun to be had in that you'll watch a lot of carnage. I don't think it works as a comedy. It definitely doesn't work when it halts the action entirely to get serious. Quit your job. Quit your job. Leave the station. Walk into the woods to live deliberately. You don't understand film. I'm not sure you understand moving objects.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ.
No, you are completely correct there. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I take that back. He could probably review porn. He seems to get that base level of stuff happens on a film and I should talk about it.
I imagine his reviews for that would consist of, well, there's stuff here to like, but it really doesn't work as much when they're in the transitional phase, when they go from position to position. Like, do I need another oral scene here? Shouldn't we just be done with this at this point?
Speaking of oral scenes, I think we're done here. So myself and Jason Teasley will do this all again tonight for Coming to America. Tomorrow, my kids and I will do a commentary for Tom and Jerry, the movie 1992. Last night, Robert Winfree and David Wright reviewed the 4 TNG Star Trek movies.
Well, last night it was released. We recorded that quite a while ago.
Stop telling them how the sausage is made.
Look, hold on. Some stuff is released contemporaneously, like this. This will be released as soon as we're done. Some stuff...
Not so much.
Some stuff takes more time, and we've not... It's no secret when it comes to the Star Trek stuff. You and I publicly mentioned a few times, because we're on the first episode of that series. You're not in this one, but the first one. That there was an editing process, and might be better for it.
Jesse and I reviewed the new Epica album, Omega, which I invite you to listen to, Robert, because there's a joke in there that I made that I said on the show. Hopes engenders you to then break something that you're currently holding in your hand when I make it, and then wish that I had been drowned in Dawson's Creek. So...
Why are you referencing Dawson's Creek?
You'll have to listen to the episode.
I'm now very concerned.
Speaking of concerning reviews, we reviewed Tom and Jerry on Damn You Hollywood earlier this week, and we kicked off the week with the Rough and Ready show on Source Material. Preview, we hates it. We hates it so much. Next week, we're doing a comic strip for the movie Extraction, which debuted on Netflix, which was based on a graphic novel written by the same guys that did The Avengers, the Russo brothers. Our Damn You Hollywood proper episode will be Tuesday. We'll be doing Raya and the Last Dragon, which time we'll review the box office numbers for this coming up weekend. Wednesday, April 10th, we are reviewing AEW Revolution. Oh boy, exploding barbed wire death matches. Oh my. And then myself and Jesse Starcher will be reviewing A Day to Remember. You're welcome. You're welcome. And then we'll be doing a special Damn You Hollywood on Thursday to review SpongeBob Sponge on the Run, which was supposed to come out last year, but COVID, and now will be making its American debut on Paramount Plus. Right now, as a matter of fact, you could go watch that as soon as you're done listening to this podcast.
If you have Paramount Plus, Mark, do you have Paramount Plus?
I do have Paramount Plus.
They're not our sponsor. It sounds like I was setting us up for a segue there. We are not sponsored. In fact, we are in fact not sponsored by Paramount Plus.
But if Paramount Plus would like to give us money to plug their service, I'm happy to take it.
We would accept just a free gift of their service.
Yeah, that'd be even better.
You don't even have to look. Whatever you'd be paying us, if you just want to say, hey, sure, have a free account on us, plug our service.
Here, review the 97 television shows that are coming out that are going to be remakes of old movies like Flashdance. I'll be happy to do that for a free service.
So the ball's in your court, Paramount. We have thrown down.
We have thrown down the gauntlet. All right, go ahead and 50 words or less.
Our offer.
50 words or less. Do your plug so we can get out of here, and I can go eat lunch and finish watching Moxie.
Well, one of those sounds like a good idea. The other sounds like it'll make the first. If you eat lunch first, it sounds like Moxie will make eating lunch...
oh my god! To your plugs.
All right, as mentioned, we have Raya and the Last Dragon coming up soon, so you can be on the lookout for that. I'm planning on being on that. That is somewhat contingent on my local theaters carrying the movie. I expect they will, but if you tune into Damn You Hollywood for Ray and the Last Dragon and it's only Mark and Alexis, something will have happened to me or my local theater's not carrying it because I am not giving Disney Plus $30 for that piece of crap.
Fair
It's
enough.
not worth it. My finances are not necessarily in that spot. Just not going to do it. But if I can get there for the regular theater price, 100%, I will be happy to review the movie. So you have that coming up. Mark ran down some of the TV parties we have on the horizon. WandaVision just wrapped up, but we're not getting to it until the end of the month because... Why exactly, Mark?
Because next week we're doing Ray and the Last Dragon, then it's St. Patrick's week, and then we'll do it.
All right. So I haven't seen it yet. I also don't care if you happen to spoil me. So don't feel at all. Anybody out there, if you happen to interact with me, I don't care if you spoil WandaVision. I really don't. So we have that coming up. What was the other movie? There was something else coming up shortly that I looked at last night, and I can't remember what it was.
The Irishman?
Yeah. The Irishman. Mark, why?
Because it's St. Patrick's week.
Just why?
Top of the morning to you. Are you done yet? Are you done
Mark,
yet?
That movie is 4 years long.
It's fine. So is this podcast. Finish!
You can find me most Saturdays covering UFC events in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. This week, coming up in just a couple of days, actually, the weigh-ins concluded while we were recording this. UFC 259. I am pumped. That is a great card top to bottom. It has 3 title fights on it. It has 15 fights total, so it's going to take approximately as long as The Irishman to watch. But I guarantee, we'll have more action. You've got a great main event. Israel Adesanya moving up to light heavyweight to fight Jan Blachowicz, trying to become the first undefeated simultaneous 2-weight world champion in the UFC. You've got Amanda Nunes defending the featherweight belt against Megan Anderson. You've got Peter Yan taking on Aljamain Sterling in a great bantamweight fight. That's the best fight on this card. Whole thing stacked top to bottom. You can find me again in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. So please do stop by. If you're interested in my preview thoughts on this particular event, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. It's recorded late Sunday, usually goes live late Sunday / early Monday. So you can find my thoughts there. I give previews. I review the event from the week before. This coming Sunday, we'll be doing that again, reviewing that, previewing the upcoming event. Again, every Sunday pretty much. That's one of the things I do. Fridays, I cover WWE SmackDown in the Wrestling Zone of 411 Mania, and I'm slowly killing the website because that's what I do. I am just death incarnate for interest, excitement, hype, however you want to say it. You hire me, I will kill it off. You got a problem and you want it done, hire me to do the job. I guarantee it. Mark used to have a nice little podcasting network. He brought me on, down in the dumps. You all are helping us rebuild that, and I am just very, very thankful for for all of the support that you give us. You give this show, you give the network. Please like, comment, subscribe. Please use our links in the description for Grammarly, for Amazon Music. It helps us out a lot, helps us grow, helps us continue to expand, helps us bring you more and more quality content just like this. And, of course, a big thank you to anyone who does sponsor it, as well as Mark for being my partner in crime for this kind of stuff, and us mutually sort of putting up with each other's nonsense. It's a lot of fun.
On that, we thank you for joining us here on DMU Hollywood. He's Robert Winfree. I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.